Good morning. Welcome once again to Charleswood Community Church Online. We are so glad that you've chosen to be with us here today on the first Sunday of Advent. Psalm 33 says, "Sing joyfully to the Lord, you righteous. It is fitting for the upright to praise him. Sing to him a new song. Play skillfully and shout for joy. For the word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does." We wait in hope for the Lord. He is our help and our shield. In him our hearts rejoice, for we trust in his holy name. May your unfailing love be with us, Lord, even as we put our hope in you. And I hope that you can echo that prayer this morning. Why don't we begin this morning by singing together, giving God all the glory for who he is and what he's done. Hebrews 1 says, "In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven." As I said, today is the first Sunday of Advent, a period of waiting where we imagine ourselves in God's great story, anticipating the arrival of the promised Messiah. It's also a time where, in our present circumstances, we watch for the second coming of the promised one, our Lord Jesus. On each of the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas, we will rejoice in the great gift that is ours, Jesus Christ. To help us celebrate, we'll be lighting the candles on the Advent wreath. The candles signify that Jesus is the light of the world. The evergreen branches of the wreath remind us that Jesus is life and brings life to us. All of these are arranged in a circle because life in Christ has no end. This is our tradition at Charleswood, and yet this year we're not able to be together to light the candles, at least not for the next week or so. Instead, we're bringing the Advent wreath around to a few families who will help lead us in our reflection time. We're calling it Advent from the Front Porch, all recorded at a good safe distance. This year, maybe more than ever, we need to be intentional about reminding ourselves that we are not alone. Christ has come to us and remains with us as we remain in him. He is Emmanuel, God with us.
Good morning. My name is Robert Birch, and it's good to see everyone again.
My name is Evelyn Birch. It's nice to see everyone, and we miss you all.
First Sunday, hope. On this first Sunday of Advent, as we think about the coming of Jesus Christ, we light the candle of hope.
Hope is our assurance that God will finish all he has started. Hope is the confidence that he will do all he has promised. 2 Corinthians 1:20 says that all the promises of God are fulfilled in Jesus Christ.
He is our hope today and forever. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift.
Thou long expected Jesus, born to set thy people free from our fears and sins. Release us, let us find our rest in thee. Dear desire people free from our fears and sins. Release us, let us find our rest in thee. One name holds weight above them all. His fame outlasts the earth he formed. His praise resounds beyond the stars and echoes in our hearts. The greatest one of all. His face shines brighter than the sun. His grace as boundless as his love. He reigns with healing in his wings, the King above all kings, the greatest one of all. Lift up our eyes, see the King has come, light of the world, reaching out for us. There is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus Christ our God. Oh, find hope when all the world seems lost. Behold the triumph of the cross. His power has trampled death and grave. Our life found in his name, the greatest name of all. Lift up our eyes, see the King has come, light of the world, reaching out for us. There is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus Christ our God. Oh, seated on high, the undefeated one. Mountains bow down as we lift him up. There is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus Christ our God. Oh, the earth will shake and tremble before him. Chains will break and heaven and earth sing. Holy is the name, holy is the name of Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Lift up our eyes, see the King has come, light of the world, reaching out for us. There is no other name, there is no other name, Jesus Christ our God. Oh, seated on high, the undefeated one. Mountains bow down as we
hello there. I was just thinking about Christmas. Maybe you are too. We're going to have a little different Christmas this year, aren't we? One of the opportunities of that is that we can have an intentional Christmas. We're going to have to make sure that we do the things that are necessary to have a good Christmas together. Well, if you get the newsletter from Charleswood, you know that there's a number of opportunities to connect with within church and also with our community. Do you know somebody in our church family or maybe in this community, in your circles, who has specific needs this Christmas? Please contact the church office, and we want to make sure that we make this a good Christmas for everybody as well. So please take note of some of those opportunities to connect. Well, 2020 has been a challenging year for sure. And it certainly doesn't escape people's notice that as we move into this Advent season, here's a time to really take stock. Advent is that 4-week season just before Christmas, whereby Christians set aside time to welcome Jesus, to treasure some of these things in our hearts, right? To remember the deep mystery of the incarnation, God with us, God in the flesh come down to us. What does it mean to be followers of a God who loves us so much that he comes to us in the flesh? Advent is this season of expectant waiting. It's a time to prepare our hearts to worship the King. And so, yes, 2020 has been a strange time. And so we want to acknowledge that and say that, we can still have a full Christmas, full of everything that God wants for us, everything that God has for us, even though it is a different version of Christmas for sure. If God is indeed with us, what does that mean for us? How does that change us? How does that change Christmas for us? Well, we want to take the 4 traditional themes of the Advent season. That's hope, love, joy, and peace. And each week, we want to look at one of those themes and ask ourselves, God, how do you intend to have us experience these things fully? How can we have a full Christmas? So this week, we want to look at the idea of hope. The first Sunday theme is hope, and that's so appropriate today, isn't it? We need hope in 2020. Maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, I hope this doesn't take too long, or maybe a little more seriously, I hope I don't get sick this year. I hope I'm well. I hope I can see friends and family at Christmas. I hope my financial situation doesn't implode. And so, as we see problems, as we face challenges, we have some measure of hope that things will be better, that things will be okay. And to have hope is yes, to feel that we want things to go well for us and for other people as well. So where does this idea of hope fit in at Christmas? Is it just a matter of looking at our situation and seeing the glass half full instead of half empty? Is it just the power of positive thinking? Is that all that hope really is? We want to look at what the Bible Project has put together, and I think they've done a really great job of talking about what biblical hope is and how it differs from just being merely optimistic, just looking on the bright side. So why don't we take a look at this and dive into that. Here's the Bible Project video. Take a look.
So let's say you want to describe the feeling of anticipating a future that's better than the present. You might be giddy or excited or maybe unsure, but most of us know that experience. We call it hope. It's a state of anticipation, and it's crucial for healthy human existence. And it's a really important concept in the Bible. In fact, there are many words for hope in the ancient languages of the Bible, and they're all fascinating. In the Old Testament, there are 2 main Hebrew words translated as hope. The first is yachal, which means simply to wait for. Like in the story of Noah and the ark, as the flood waters recede, Noah had to yachal for weeks. The other Hebrew word is kavah, which also means to wait. It's related to the Hebrew word kav, which means cord. When you pull a kav tight, you produce a state of tension until there's release. That's kavah, the feeling of tension and expectation while you wait for something to happen. The prophet Isaiah depicts God as a farmer who plants vines and kavahs for good grapes. Or the prophet Micah talks about farmers who both kavah and yachal for morning dew to give moisture to the land. So in biblical Hebrew, hope is about waiting or expectation. But waiting for what? In the period of Israel's prophets, as the nation was sinking into self-destruction, Isaiah said, "At this moment, the Lord's hiding his face from Israel, so I will kavah for him." The only hope Isaiah had in those dark days was the hope for God himself. You find this same notion of hope all over the book of Psalms, where these words appear over 40 times. In almost every case, what people are waiting for is God. Like in Psalm 130, the poet cries out from a pit of despair, "I kavah for the Lord. Let Israel yachal for the Lord, because he's loyal and will redeem Israel from its sins." Biblical hope is based on a person, which makes it different from optimism. Optimism is about choosing to see in any situation how circumstances could work out for the best. But biblical hope is not focused on circumstances. In fact, hopeful people in the Bible often recognize there's no evidence things will get better, but you choose hope anyway. Like the prophet Hosea, he lived in a dark time when Israel was being oppressed by foreign empires, and he chose hope when he said God could turn this valley of trouble into a door of hope, like the day when Israel came up from the land of Egypt. God had surprised his people with redemption back in the days of the Exodus, and he could do so again. So it's God's past faithfulness that motivates hope for the future. You look forward by looking backward, trusting in nothing other than God's character. It's like the poet of Psalm 39 who says, "And now, O Lord, what else can I kavah for? You are my yachal." In the New Testament, the earliest followers of Jesus cultivated this similar habit of hope. They believed that Jesus' life, death, and resurrection was God's surprising response to our slavery to evil and death. The empty tomb opened up a new door of hope, and they used the Greek word elpis to describe this anticipation. The Apostle Peter said that Jesus' resurrection opened up a living hope, that people can be reborn, to become new and different kinds of humans. More than once, the Apostle Paul says the good news about Jesus announces the elpis of glory. In both cases, this elpis is based on a person, the risen Jesus, who has overcome death. And this hope wasn't just for humans. The apostles believed that what happened to Jesus in the resurrection was a foretaste of what God had planned for the whole universe. In Paul's words, it's a hope that creation itself will be liberated from slavery to corruption into freedom when God's children are glorified. So Christian hope is bold, waiting for humanity and the whole universe to be rescued from evil and death. And some would say it's crazy, and maybe it is. But biblical hope isn't optimism based on the odds. It's a choice to wait for God to bring about a future that's as surprising as a crucified man rising from the dead. Christian hope looks back to the risen Jesus in order to look forward. And so we wait. That's what the biblical words for hope are all about.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Wasn't that interesting? It's important to see how biblical hope differs from just optimism, right? Optimism looks at the circumstances and makes accommodations around that. And biblical hope looks at God and chooses to trust despite the circumstances. So, we can't deny or change reality, can we? And we can't really force ourselves not to feel negative emotions. It's not just to ignore things, to be untethered from reality. However, we can choose to trust God, even in the darkest and most challenging times. To have a hopeful Christmas is to choose Jesus. Well, how does the backstory of Jesus bring us hope? There's 4 Gospels in the New Testament, these Gospels, these stories of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And it's only in 2 of them that really we get the backstory or some of the backstory of Jesus in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke. And so we don't get all that we want, but certainly we get what we need. And these stories in Matthew and Luke, both include a genealogy, a family tree of Jesus. And they're a little different. And there's some reasons for that, but we're going to look at the genealogy in Matthew. And it's a very significant one. And but the most important reason, the most fundamental understanding of this genealogy is simply this. This family tree places Jesus in human history. It places Jesus in our history, in your story, in my story. And Jesus comes to be one of us. Friends, we get to have real hope because God is with us. And telling ourselves that story over and over again, not just at Christmas, but other times as well, God with us, is so crucial to having real hope, to anchor ourselves in difficult times to the true gospel, the good news of Jesus, God with us. And friends, that's where real hope comes from. So why don't we just take a look at a few things, shall we? Well, how does Jesus' story bring me hope? That's the question. Well, number one, contrary to wishful thinking, Jesus delivers both liberation and blessing. Contrary to wishful thinking, I really hope things work out, cross my fingers. Jesus brings liberation, freedom from, and he brings blessing, freedom to. That's what Jesus brings. Well, friends, have you been watching the Netflix series, The Crown? I know that at Charleswood there's a number of Anglophiles and royal watchers. I won't out anybody, but I know that there's lots of folks who not just are interested in TV and series and drama and whatever, but the subject matter interests lots of people as well. The Crown it's going to be 6 seasons, and I think we're in season 4 right now. They've just released season 4, and this is the 6-season series on the life of Queen Elizabeth II, or the current Queen of England right now. She's 94 years old, and she is the longest living and longest reigning British monarch. So I guess, yeah, that's why you need 6 seasons to tell her story, since she started her reign in 1952. That's a long time ago. Well, it's been an interesting story, and the people who have watched season 4 have told me that it's a particularly grimy season with lots of misadventures and lots of royal shenanigans going on. The Queen is very currently, she's a popular personality, but it wasn't always so, was it? If you remember the 80s and 90s in particular, it really showed the royal family misbehaving. And this was at the absolute beginning of that time when the tabloid press in Britain was especially rabid, and they were just after the royal family at all times. And that really was this confluence of bad behavior plus a press that was willing to tell all, and the old standards of don't show the royal family in a bad light, they were gone. The aim was just sell a bunch of newspapers, right? And the public just ate it up. Everybody wanted to see the underside, the dark underside of the royal family. And we see that now in our celebrity-obsessed culture, and putting people up on pedestals and ripping them down and tearing them down. And as The Crown, as this series shows us, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And you know, if you're one of those people who put their faith in leaders, if your hope lies in having somebody who's strong and capable and kind and benevolent and all-wise and all-knowing, well, The Crown is definitely a disillusioning process, isn't it, to watch that? Don't we need a leader? Don't we all need a champion who is trustworthy and reliable and always for us? Friends, we've all been let down by people in authority, jobs, in politics, and maybe in life and relationships too. And through our own experience, through our own observation, we've seen that leading well is difficult. Delivering change is hard. And yet we live in a culture that yearns for freedom and prosperity and security. And we live with the failure of leaders who have been elected or appointed to deliver that, and they don't come through for us. And there's just a sense of disillusionment about that as well. And so here comes the story in the Bible of God's interaction with human history and God sending his son Jesus to deliver both liberation, freedom from, and blessing, freedom to. In verse 1 in Matthew, this story, it starts off by saying this is the genealogy of Jesus. And the word genealogy in Greek is literally Genesis. This is the beginning. This is the very beginning. This is what it's all about here. You know, in the Gospels, the life of Jesus, it's interesting that Jesus is usually identified as Jesus of Nazareth, or Jesus the carpenter, or Jesus son of Joseph. And these are very familial terms, or culturally relevant terms at when Jesus is living. But then the cross and the resurrection changes things, and Jesus is then identified in a completely different way. He's Jesus Christ, Jesus the Messiah, Jesus the Anointed One. He's Jesus, son of David. He's Jesus, son of Abraham. And so there's this difference. There's this difference, these three new identifiers, and Matthew includes them here. He's Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Well, something has changed in the story. And now Jesus is something more. He's the Messiah. He's the Anointed One. That word in the Old Testament simply meant he's the one who's going to deliver us, the one who's going to rescue us. And that word is actually used in the Old Testament a number of times. It's used of a number of people who deliver the people from oppression temporarily for a certain period of time. It's even used of, yes, a foreign king too, Cyrus the Persian. We just talked about him in our last series in Haggai. And so there's lots of little messiahs, temporary deliverers. But now Jesus has come. Now Jesus, he's going to be the one who's going to, in terms of the Old Testament expectations, he's going to unify the 12 tribes. He's going to gather the scattered peoples. He's going to usher in global peace. He's going to be the one to kick off this new age, this new world. And so all that political and cultural expectation, that's the Messiah. And Jesus comes along, and it's more than just an economic and financial and political reset. It's something brand new. It's something wonderful. It's something deeper than you could possibly imagine. He's the Messiah. He's not only the Messiah, he's the son of David as well. He's the true king. He's in the royal line. And throughout the book of Matthew, throughout the Gospels, there's that phrase that comes up time and time again, Jesus, son of David. Just simply telling us he is the true king. All these other kings were just pointing to him. And throughout the Old Testament, we know the story of Israel as they look around at all the surrounding nations and all the pagan nations, and they say, we want a king too. We want to be like everybody else. And God's prophets say, you're not like everybody else. You don't need an earthly king. The true king is coming. And here's Jesus, and he sweeps up not just all the messianic expectation, he sweeps up the kingly expectations too. And then thirdly, he is the son of Abraham as well. What's that all about? Well, what Matthew is saying is Jesus is the true Israelite. He's the true son of Israel. He's the one where Israel, the nation, fails to follow God. Jesus is the one who's going to succeed in that and do that perfectly. He's the summation of all their history, all their painful failures, and Jesus comes and wipes away all that and succeeds. We did a series in the summer about Abraham, and you remember Genesis 12, Genesis 15, Genesis 22. What does God promise through Abraham? He tells Abraham, I'm raising you up, and I'm going to give you, form for you a nation. And through that nation, through you, all nations will be blessed. Everybody will be blessed. Jesus isn't just bringing in the Gentiles. He's for everybody. He's not just the king of the Jews. He's the king of the world. He's the king for everybody. And Matthew wants us to know that he's the anointed one. He's the one who's going to usher in the new world. And he's the true king. He's the true source of blessing. Friends, Jesus delivers liberation and blessing beyond mere wishful thinking. It's Jesus in whom the hopes and fears of all the years are met in thee tonight. Well, secondly, how does Jesus' backstory bring hope? Well, contrary to the desire for neat and tidy, God works in the messiness. Have you noticed that in your life these days? It's a little untidy, it's not very neat, it's messy. Well, that's okay. God works in the messy. Well, we've all learned about public health measures. We've all become sort of amateur epidemiologists, haven't we, during this pandemic? This week, I actually learned about the Swiss cheese model. Swiss cheese model, it's simply a metaphor for how these public health interventions all work together. So you see there on the picture there's a stack of Swiss cheese there. Well, each layer would represent a particular public safety intervention. One layer would be physical distancing, social distancing. Another would be mask wearing. Another would be hand washing. Another would be disinfecting. All those layers, all those interventions are imperfect, aren't they? Any safeguard has some kind of flaw, some kind of hole, just like Swiss cheese, right? But when you stack them all together, all of a sudden, the risk is reduced. I like this Swiss cheese model. It was introduced or suggested in 1990, I think, by a mathematician over in England, and he was talking about not risk elimination, but risk management. How do we lower the risk of management? And I think that the value of this kind of model is it alerts us to that, hey, listen, there's no system that's foolproof. And it lines up with how you and I experience the world, right? Sometimes, even though we'd like things to be neat and tidy and perfect and 100% guaranteed, that's not real life. Friends, for a lot of us, for most of us, at some point in our lives, we've gone through a season where life is dark, it's chaotic, and it feels like there's a lot of holes and it's pretty messy. Friends, Jesus steps into that world. I'm sure you've seen those little video bits too of a celebrity, maybe an athlete, maybe a singer or a movie star, that they've come to do some kind of charitable work, and the cameras are all set up, everything's squeaky clean. They drive up in a limo and they come into the soup kitchen and they shake a few hands, they take a few pictures, they serve a little bit of soup, and then boom, they're out the door. That's not what Jesus does here. Jesus steps into our lives. He becomes human, God with us. Here he steps into this world. He's born into an impoverished world. He's born into an oppressed culture. He's a second-class citizen in his own country. He's a refugee. He lives life in this obscure little backwater, and when he goes around in his public ministry, his speech marks him as somebody born in the backwater, and he's not taken seriously. He lives for years in anonymity, just in this working class background. And then he steps into public ministry for a couple of years, and his family rejects him. His friends reject him. A prophet has no honor in his home city. And he's ultimately rejected by his people and crucified a violent and painful death. Jesus is for real. He's no celebrity. God works in the messiness, and that's plan A. I love this genealogy in Matthew 1 from verses 2 to 16. And we look at this genealogy through modern eyes and we kind of shrug. First of all, it's a bunch of names. Who really cares? Let's just kind of go on to the real story. Friends, this is the story. This is the gospel story, not just the Christmas story here. In this genealogy, just note some of the fascinating things about this, because we look at it through modern eyes and we don't get just the shock and the marvel and just the newness of what's going on here. There's 5 women mentioned in this genealogy. They're not royal women for the most part either. They're ordinary people. Most of these are ordinary people. But there's 5 women. Women didn't count in those days. Women weren't legal people. They were just afterthoughts. And here's Matthew including them. He says, listen, everybody counts in this story, even these women here. And I love this because each of these women represents something scandalous. Something scandalous in Jesus' story. Not just Israel's history, but in Jesus' family. I'm sure we have the expression in our culture, skeletons in your closet, right? Things that we would rather not talk about, not mention. Uncle so-and-so did this, or somebody did that, was hospitalized, or lost their job, or committed a crime, or born out of wedlock, all these stories too. And we all have them in our histories, don't we? And here's Matthew putting it right on the table and saying, this is Jesus' story. Look at these women. And Tamar, sleeping with Judah, her father-in-law, to secure her family line. Rahab, the town prostitute. And Bathsheba, wrapped up in adultery and murder. Some of the most salacious and frankly terrible stories in the Old Testament. That's Jesus' people. Not only that, but look at the blue text there too. And Matthew includes some of the cultural scandals that happen as well. Babylon, the exile. Remember, we called that this is national trauma, just like Jewish people remember the Holocaust. People in those days, they would remember the exile. That was deeply shameful and scarring, and people lost their lives and livelihoods, and the whole culture was upset. And Matthew's bringing our attention to that. Listen, he's talking about the exile. He's talking about Mary, the mother of Jesus. And again, that out of wedlock pregnancy. Mary would have carried around that shame with her and the voices and the gossip in the small town. Oh, Joseph and Mary didn't wait to get married. They couldn't wait. And so Jesus, the tar of illegitimacy would be around him as well. And so that stigma would be there as well. And so Matthew's bringing all that out and saying, this is what Jesus came into the world. This is what Jesus is all about. Friends, one thing that also jumps out at me now is in the last number of years, we've been made more sensitive to these things, and we're asking new questions of the biblical text. I noticed the interracial marriages in here. 3 ancestors of Jesus are Gentiles. And here we have Rahab, the Canaanite, Ruth, the Moabite, Moab. Israel hated Moab. And so these enemies, this vociferous, bitter enemies, and Ruth, the Moabite, she's in Jesus' history as well. Bathsheba, the Hittite. Bathsheba literally means daughter of Sheba. She's an Arab. And here's an Arab in the Jewish lineage of King David and Jesus as well. Interracial marriage. What does that say to us about the importance of the global mission that everybody's included? What does it mean then to be about racial reconciliation if Matthew is making sure that we know, Gentiles, that everybody's included in Jesus' background? Friends, listen, the story of Jesus has changed the world. These verses tell us that the story of Jesus changes the world in ways that we can't even possibly imagine. Our liberal democracy, with its sensitivity towards human rights and individual dignity, that is unthinkable without Jesus, without the story of Jesus. The way we view people, ordinary people, as being worthy of dignity and attention, that's rooted in this story as well. Equality of women, rooted in this story as well. The virtue of and the desirability of racial reconciliation, where does that come from? It comes from this story right here. It takes a long time, and human history is full of false starts and stops and zigs and zags, but the gospel, the good news that Jesus brings is that even in the messiness, God is working and drawing us to his good future as well. We're all in process, aren't we? And yet there's Jesus right in the midst of it, right in the messiness. And he's not snapping a finger and fixing everything. He's right there with us. As things unfold, slowly, incrementally, sometimes, yes, painfully, but God is there. And God chooses to be with us, especially in the messiness. Well, lastly, how does Jesus' backstory bring hope? Well, contrary to our limited perspective, God is making us whole. We only see in part, but God is doing something bigger and broader and deeper and more richer than we can possibly imagine. Have you ever seen a tapestry? What's a tapestry? It's a piece of woven cloth made on a grid or a loom, and it has vertical threads and horizontal threads. The vertical threads are called warps, and the horizontal ones are called wefts. Warps and wefts. I know, say that quickly. And how do you make a tapestry? Well, you have your warps, and you carefully interweave these wefts, these threads, through those vertical threads. And then you keep pushing it down nice and tight until you have different colors or different designs. And when it's all finished, the warps, the vertical threads, are not visible. It's all you can see are the wefts. All you can see are what's been interwoven. That's a beautiful design or a beautiful picture. But if you turn it around, well, then you can see the warp. Then you can see all this messiness too. You can see the snips and the way the horizontal threads have been tied up and tied off, and there's knots and different things. And the front looks like a masterpiece. The back looks like a disaster. Well, friends, you see where I'm going with that. It's such an irresistible metaphor for me because, friends, we're in the warp of life, literally, aren't we? You know, we can't see the finished product. We can't see the design. And we can only become vaguely aware sometimes of the Creator and what the Master Weaver is doing. Friends, especially in these days, we look out and we say, is this all random? Is this just chaos? Is this just warp? Is this mess? Is that it? Or is there something bigger? Is there something deeper? Is there a grand design that's going on, even though I'm only faintly aware of the outlines, even though I'm just a little bit aware of the Master Weaver and what he's doing? Is there something else? Yes, friends, God is making us whole. And this chronology, this genealogy in verses 2 to 16 is not just generational chronology, so-and-so begat so-and-so, so-and-so begat so-and-so. It isn't that kind of dry recitation of generational history. It's God's family story. It's God's family story. And here Matthew tells us this by 3 times using 14 generations. 14 generations, 14 generations. What's that all about? Well, it's this little thing called gematria. What's gematria? Well, for example, if you watch a lot of Pixar movies, you know there's a thing called Easter eggs. What are Easter eggs? Easter eggs are things that the producer, that the creator of the film puts into the story as just a little reminder, as a little hidden joke, a little something to tell us about his benevolence, about he'll want to say something, just make a little inside joke about something. Alfred Hitchcock, the great director of all those murder mysteries, he put himself in each one of his films. And so in one little scene in all of Hitchcock movies, you'll see the director himself. Steven Spielberg does the same thing in some of his movies. In the Raiders of the Lost Ark series, you'll see R2-D2, the little robot from the Star Wars movies. You'll see him in some of those scenes too. A gentle joke or just something visually interesting and appealing, just to tell you again of the overall intent of the Creator. What is he doing? He's aware of what's going on. He's tying this to a bigger story. Well, that's what's going on here with 14, 14, and 14. Gematria is just simply assigning a numerical value in the Greek language to each one of the words. So David, DVD, would be 4, 6, and 4. So that would be 14. And so Matthew was just using that gematria, the Easter egg, if you will, to say Jesus is in the Davidic line. Jesus is the new David. Jesus is the son of David. Jesus is the culmination of all our hopes and dreams about having a real and true king. Jesus is the King of Kings. So Matthew's doing something a little clever there. And he's telling Israel's story, isn't he? He's saying, listen, Abraham was the beginning of the story. David was the high point of the story. Exile was the low point of the story. And now Jesus has come. The Messiah has come. The rescue. The start, the high, the low, the rescue. That's the story of Israel in a nutshell here. And friends, we have hope, true hope, when we understand our family history in that kind of way. God is saving the world. He's coming to us. And he's doing that through Jesus. Friends, the gospel, the good news, is just this. It's telling us who we are. It's telling us our predicament. It's telling us about the solution that God has sent his son Jesus to do for us what we couldn't do for ourselves, to take upon us, to take upon himself and break the power of sin so that we can have a relationship, so that we can be adopted into God's family. The gospel tells us the true story of us and God. We have hope because of Jesus. Well, I want to leave you with a little Advent encouragement. In 2020, in Code Red, we are in the midst of challenges, aren't we? Yeah, it's been a tough year. We're part of a great host of people. Those who have persisted and prevailed, though. How have those people who have gone before us or who are with us, how have they persisted and prevailed? Are they stronger than us? Are they smarter? Are they better? No. They were simply faithful to what God revealed to them. They looked to the Lord rather than circumstance for their hope. Friends, we can look at our own families. We can look in our friend groups. We can look at some of the folks at church and some of the faithful people who have gone before us and the ones who continue to point us to see Jesus. So I want you this week to share a few examples of faithfulness in your family lineage. How might God be working something similar in you? Well, as we close, I just want to leave you with a word of encouragement from the book of Hebrews that talks about what it means to have hope in the midst of difficulty. And here's what the author of Hebrews says in chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. How do you have hope this Christmas. Friends, true hope in this Advent season comes with not looking at your circumstances and just hoping and wishing and crossing your fingers that it's going to get better, just looking on the bright side. That's not where hope comes from. It comes from looking at Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. It's more than just optimism. It's fixing our eyes on Jesus. Friends, my prayer for you is that you have a hopeful Christmas. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for who you are and what you've sent your Son to do for us. Oh Lord, as we read these genealogies, we are moved again that, Lord, you come not for the special people, you come for all of us. And Lord, you delight to work in the messiness of our lives and in the sweep of history, in the warp of history. And Lord, that's where you are. And Lord, we ask in our difficulties, in our challenges, in the good times and as well as the bad times, Lord, may we sense you right there, and may you continue to be with us, and may we feel that. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, have hope, and may God bless you this week.